to the Monday, August 14th, Kettle Hills Board of Commissioners meeting. Appreciate everyone joining us this evening. We'll call our meeting to order and begin with, if you would join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you would also join us for a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Before we move on with our agenda, just like to recognize we have two former mayors in the audience with us this evening. So Terry Gray, welcome, and Sherry Rollison, welcome. Thank you both for being here. And I'll also highlight Chairman of the County Commissioners just walked in, Bob Woodard. Welcome this evening. Thanks for being here. So, with that, we will move on to the first item on our agenda, which is the agenda approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll move on now. This is the first time set aside this evening for public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone who wishes to address the board on any topic if they're choosing to do so. We just invite you to come to the podium, introduce yourself by, bless you, name and address. We do ask if you're speaking on, as an individual, to try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, if you could keep your comments to 5 minutes, that way it allows for plenty of time for everyone to share that wishes to share. We do have a sign-up sheet. We will call first from the sign-up sheet. If you did not sign up, that's fine. You're still welcome to speak. Then we'll call from the floor. So first, welcome, Mayor Rollison.
I tried my very best to get this down under 3 minutes, so I'm giving y'all a copy of some of the stats I had in there. Pushed me over to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So you'll
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Rollison. I live at 533 Myrtle Court, which is in the Wrightwood subdivision. I'm a residential real estate appraiser for 20 plus years, and I have been part of Rollison Wood Realty since 1971. I have seen a lot of changes in this place that we call home. Some very good changes, some not so good changes, and some really good changes. First, let me say, having been sitting in your seats and experiencing how tough it is in making decisions, whatever decisions are made, you will always have at least half that will disagree with you. But if you base your decisions on fact and not emotions, and what is good and positive for the town as a whole, you will have done your job well. There are two topics on tonight's agenda that I want to quickly address. The first being the regulatory options for large single-family dwellings. This issue has come up several times, and you did write in 2015 to hold off and address the situation and see and monitor and what have you. And the staff and I have gone back and looked at all the minutes and stuff and what have you from the planning board standpoint and from the Board of Commissioners. And there are some valid questions and concerns, especially with the loss of the tax base, as well as many more that I don't have time to list all those. The large homes on the oceanfront has come about due to the regulations preventing the construction of hotels, motels, and cottage courts. In the past, both Nags Head and Kettle Hills has seen older hotels and cottage courts torn down in the larger homes because it is no longer economically feasible to build or remodel such structures. A consideration of establishing a special committee made up of representatives from various interest groups, staff, and ordinary citizens may be beneficial in undertaking the task of answering the many questions and options of any regulations may have, and just focusing on the citizens' input and the land use plan is not enough to make such a decision for the town. Our area has seen a tremendous amount of growth in the past 20 years. Each of the 6 municipalities are unique. Killaloe Hills is the largest into the population and more transit than any other municipality. The majority of the year-round residents live on the west side of Croatown Highway. And after the last planning board, I wanted to verify what I had found in my 20 years of experience of appraising property, just what the average lot size in the subdivisions were. And my conclusions are in there. I took every subdivision that we have going from north to south and kind of did an average on that. Excluding Bermuda Bay, because that's all condo, 0 lot size, so that's not even into the equation and what have you. The larger site size allows the conservation of the woods, larger structures, and is more suitable for allowance of swimming pools, detached garages, and more privacy between neighbors. I found that the 7,500 square foot lot usually accommodates only a 960 beach box or 1,200. There are a few that have gone, because they've gone 2.5 stories, 1,800 square feet. The 15,000 square foot lots that's in the current ordinance now, even though the most pleasing and one is able to have a larger home built, does not bring the larger return for the developer of the subdivision. The change in the requested ordinance is not site specific, but reality is there is only one site of 5+ acres on the west side of Croatown Highway left in the town to develop. And I hope the board will find a common ground with developer to have a subdivision that not only is economically beneficial, both in terms of return and increased tax base, but that a subdivision that is compatible to the surrounding areas be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thanks. Thank you, Sherry.
Next on the sign-up sheet, we have Michael Payne.
We're also on the agenda. I didn't know.
Are you speaking about that item?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll call you during the agenda item.
Okay, sorry.
Great. Oh, no worries, no worries. Okay, so that does it for the sign-up sheet, but who would like to speak that's here? Yes, sir, welcome.
My name is Richard Huban. I live at 108 West St. Clair, and I was before the board in May about the noise from the Bruin station. And since then, I really hadn't had a chance to talk to anybody in person until about 2 weeks ago. Mary Davies was out of town. She arranged a meeting with Mr. Hogan, and I was in the Assistant Chief Harris office. Mr. Hogan proceeded to tell me that they hadn't had any violations, which I'm aware of. He said it's summertime on the Outer Banks. I said, okay. He said, you know, the area zone commercial, you knew that when you bought your house? I said, okay. I said, I was just looking for a little neighborly cooperation. He said, I can go and talk to him when I leave here, but he doesn't have to turn the music down. I said, okay, so I left. And I was pretty much just going to leave it at that. And then Saturday and Sunday last week, Saturday night, they had a rock band from Brooklyn, New York, and the music was louder than it's been in 2 or 3 years. So I called the police, and they came, they measured, and the decibels were reading, when she got there, they couldn't come for the first hour because there was an accident, they couldn't get there, I understand. When they got there, the songs playing were not near as loud as what I called on. She was reading, I believe, 66 consistently to upwards to 75. She came over to tell me, she came up inside my house on my deck, she was reading 62 to 68. And I don't know if any of you have ever, been about 100 yards away from that decibel music, but it's extremely, extremely loud. So, they can only stay about 10, 15 minutes, so they can't catch all the songs. On Sunday, there was a guy out there screaming at the top of his lungs playing a guitar. I called him around 7. The officer arrived. She said, earlier she was at the fuel depot with her sergeant, and the sergeant, that's over there by the recycle center. Sergeant said, boy, it's loud tonight. I can't believe the guy at West St. Clair hadn't called yet. Well, I called, she came, she got readings in the upper 60s to the lower 70s. And, I find that a little troublesome that the music goes a half a mile away when they're only entertaining people in their backyard, that maybe 50, 70 people, and the backyard can't be more than 125 feet by 200 feet. So I don't really see the reason for 65 to 75 decibel music. I have to believe that the board that granted permission for these outside venues to have music outside to entertain their customers was for, keep it similarly on that property, not, not be heard a half mile away, with levels that are more suited for Roanoke Island Festival Park than commercial or residential. It doesn't matter. I've been to 4 or 5 places that have music. None of them are half as loud as the Bruin Station. That was just an outdoor concert. It wasn't entertaining anybody back there. When it's over 55 to 60 decibels, I said before, we have 5 houses on that street. You can hear it inside all the houses. When it's 55 and below, we can go inside and get away from it, get off our deck. Mayor Davis replied to the email. She's been very cordial in all her email replies. She said it seemed like I was the only one complaining, but I'm representing 8 homeowners. It's 5 houses. 1 house is owned by 3 people. And they're never here. I retired. I'm here every night. I hear every song. If the music was like it was this week, I would have never stood up here. I would have never called the police. It's been perfect. But it's the 5 or 6 nights a month that they're just having an outdoor concert. That I'm trying to come up here and convince somebody. I don't know if y'all have ever been on West St. Clair when it's over 60 decibels. It's extremely, extremely loud and penetrates the inside of a house. All I would like to say is, why can't this board, I know where Mr. Hogan stands, why can't this board dial back the outside venues in Kildover Hills to cap at 55 decibels? It's still loud, I can still hear it in my house, but I can turn the TV up and get away from it. I guess that's about it. I mean, my house is 100 yards, well, all 4 houses are 100 yards away. His fence is 125 by 200. I'm trying to figure out and understand why he's allowed to have 75 decibel music. I realize it's commercial zone. I know the amendment's probably been amended a couple of times over the years. I don't know why it couldn't be amended to cap that decibel for outside music. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Is there anyone that would like to speak now or next? Jim, welcome.
Excuse me. Jim Souls, owner of Souls Realty LBX, and talking about the large single-family dwellings. Asked the board, and of course the town, to look at the economic impact, like Ms. Rollison said. I'll give you an example. An owner has a property, vacant land, or maybe a tear down. His current status is worth $1.2 million. So if you reduce the large single families to where they can't build, say, a 16 or 18 bedroom, you're really impacting that owner, or many owners, probably half that value, maybe a little more. So your occupancy tax is going to be a lot less. Your tax base is going to be less. Really, you got to look at it as if you own one of those properties, and you know the value. You're going to really reduce it by that much, and the trickle-down effect of it with construction, new construction, which is still pretty busy. So employment, tax base. I mean, there's just so many factors, like Ms. Rollison said, that would affect the economy of Kildover Hills and the town. So just want to make that valid point to the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak at this public comment time? Okay. Seeing no hands, we'll close public comment. There is a time later at the end of the meeting as well if you decide you would like to speak then. We'll move on then to response to public comment. First, Sherry, thank you for putting your comments in writing as well. We'll take those into consideration during our discussions. As far as Mr. Huban's comments and coming before the board again, I think the question for the board is, does the board have interest in revisiting our noise ordinance? And specifically, the request is looking at making modifications to the decibel readings.
wishes to revisit.
The, if I understand it, somewhere around 60 decibels is normal conversation level, right?
Right, just about what I thought, so.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure if we could make it much quieter than where we're at right now and be able to hear it in the backyard. I mean, I know a lawnmower's around 90 or 95, so I mean, that's obviously louder than you want to hear at 9 o'clock at night, but I'm not sure how much lower you're gonna be able to go with outdoor music. And what is our current level?
Thought it was at 65.
75 is commercial.
75 in commercial at the edge of their property.
Where it's originating, and there's timelines associated with that.
That's up until 11.
11 o'clock.
Mary had pulled, some information basically, and can share this with everyone if you wish. But it's a timeline for the board even before the seated board when this was discussed and looked at. But most recently, which impacted our 2014, where we made the change, I think that was 14, I think we finally adopted, was the information we used to gather that. And so if you'll recall, our police department went out for weeks before that, gathering decibel readings from area establishments. And so anyway, she pulled that and shared that just so I could, one, look back, kind of doing my own history check, and I shared that with Mr. Huban as well. So I'm sorry, it was November 14th, 2012 was when we made the last change and where we adopted the ordinance where we included the decibel readings. So it's information certainly that can be shared for ease of finding for you all if you would like that.
Hate to punish all of them just because of one establishment. I mean, maybe we can sort of reach out to the booth station and see if they're willing to put up some sort of sound dampening material.
Yeah, I believe that request has been made. I know Mike has spoken with them a couple of times about being mindful of the noise. It's hit or miss from what Mr. Huban's reporting, but I don't think that specific request has been asked of him.
I mean, it could just be a matter of speaker placement. I don't know, I haven't been out there to their backyard to look.
And it really depends on the night, and I think it also depends on the type of music. I know I shared in one of my emails that I play tennis in the women's league, and we play at the Parks and Rec tennis courts. You know, we're out there anywhere from 5:30 to 9:30 at night, and it's interesting, all the comments from the tennis ladies. Sometimes it's really motivating, the music that's out there, and sometimes not so much, but it's such a personal preference.
Right.
But it really varies based on what's played. So,
Yeah, I spoke to Aubrey on a couple of occasions, and there have been occasions where he's actually lowered the volume when he was asked, when the officers visited, took readings, even though they didn't exceed the limit. Excuse me. Last year, he had the groups would come in and set up with their amps and stuff. It was problematic because of the sound quality and volume. So over the winter, they had a new sound system installed where the groups come, they plug into their sound system, and they have 12 speakers around the yard, all pointing into the yard, which I understand some of them would be pointing across the yard and out the other side. And he said that enables them to control the volume and have a lower volume because of the coverage, the area of coverage. And they haven't violated the code at all. Excuse me. I think we need to be careful about occupants of a residence in the commercial zone would supersede the rights of the commercial establishments.
Right.
And I don't think changing the code to suit one person or a small group is really what we need to be doing.
It's really just, if there's not, if there's not a desire for the board to revisit the decibel ordinance, if there's not consensus, then we don't. If there's consensus, then we would, so.
I mean, I'd probably say no. I mean, it took a long time for the original ones to go when we were dealing with the noise around the pit and other places.
So I'm not seeing consensus to revisit the ordinance. Okay. Okay. Then next, still under response to public comment, Mr. Souls, thank you for your comments. Where did Jim go? There you are. Thank you. Obviously, we'll take those into consideration as well when we move to that agenda item. And with that, we will move on to the first item under old business. Item number 1 is the preliminary flood insurance rate maps update. And Meredith, lead us through this.
Thank you. I will be brief. Most of these issues you've already heard about. Our preliminary flood insurance maps came out in June of last year. We're getting ready to move into the 90-day appeal process for those flood maps. I've been consistently meeting with all the planners in our area about some of the issues that we have with the maps, including that a tremendous amount of our properties move into the X zone, that we have empirical data that shows that they flood. We're dealing with shallow flooding. That's not something we've dealt with. The numbers that did remain in a flood zone dropped dramatically to the point that we also have empirical data that shows that the structures will be flooded at that elevation. The things that you haven't heard about that we've been talking about are also the flood insurance rate maps and the FRIZ, or the system that you go and look at on the internet. None of the addresses are right. They're not even in the ballpark of being right. You have to go on the Dare County GIS site, find the property you're looking for, then go physically find it on the FRIZ, and then when you print out the report that the insurance and mortgage companies want to be able to use for an insurance flood rate determination, they can't because it doesn't have the right address. So then we have to write a flood determination letter every time for people to be able to get their mortgages and insurance and things like that. So that's one thing that you hadn't heard about before. The other thing that you probably, that we've discussed at length is the inability to read the map. The X zones and the shaded X zones are not clearly identified and they're not on the map legend. So there are these areas that are a color, but there's no identification to them. The other things that are listed in my memo, including the flood model that they use to develop the maps, the shallow flooding, which are AO zones, the base flood elevations, and the X zones on the preliminary maps being off. And we've had several discussions about that. We, as a board, you decided not to do the formal appeal process, and still very supportive of that decision. However, we did, a majority of the municipalities agreed to write a letter before the formal appeal process begins, which could be as early as Wednesday, regarding these issues. The county approved this at their August 7th meeting, and I'm looking at a letter here signed by Chairman Woodard, August 11th, and we would be modeling our letter very similar to the county letter and feel like a strong voice in an informal manner, just so that they know we're not gonna do a formal appeal, but that we do recognize that there are issues, and that if they could address even some of them outside of the formal appeal process, that we would be very grateful. So, I would ask permission to have the mayor sign a letter with, these topics discussed in regards of an informal, letter addressing some of the concerns we have with the new preliminary flood insurance rate maps.
Thank you, Meredith. Any questions for Meredith?
Just a rhetorical one. How do you think that got out with that information on it. I mean, I'm not asking you, just making a point. You know, bad information.
The bad addressing,
Yeah.
they used a program that they were reliant on. They didn't consult the local, one of our issues is that they didn't do a lot of local interaction prior to starting this process. And simply the site that they use to get their addressing is just very, very inaccurate for Dare County. I mean, if you wanna use the address module of it and you put in your physical address, I would say 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna get, it either won't come up at all, or it'll be maybe in another town. It's really just not even in the ballpark. So you really gotta do a cross look at it. I mean, it's accurate as in where it is on Earth, it's just not accurate as to the
Well, that's something, right?
address, that has been assigned to it.
Obviously, examples will be put in the letter to explain that, so.
Okay, thank you for answering the rhetorical question.
They say they're fixing it, but they've been saying that for over a
Been saying
year, so.
that for a long time.
Huh?
They've been saying that for a long time.
A really long time.
So, is there consensus, for letter to come from me? Great. Okay, thank you, and thanks for the work on this, Meredith, appreciate it.
Thank you, Meredith.
Next is item number 2, under old business, the land use plan timeline update. I think Meredith is also gonna update us on that, or is?
She's on a roll.
Yeah,
I'm on a
keep her
roll.
going.
Don't hear too much from me. Land use plan's going well, the survey is been developed in SurveyMonkey, we're doing some test runs on it. We have a draft of the postcard done that Brian actually sent to the printer today to get us some proofs to make sure it all fits right. We're also working with the Public Services Department to put something on the water bill, directing people to the website for our, survey. We hope to have the survey released, in the next week or two at the most, but, and plan on keeping it open for at least a month. We also are working with the RFQ. I've talked to some municipalities who've recently done a land use plan update, gotten some advice about consultants, also gotten some RFQs that they use, which makes life a lot easier, and we'll be preparing that RFQ to go out, probably the first 2 weeks in September, and hopefully have a consultant, to actually update the plan, ready for you guys in October. There's 2 meetings in October, so I don't know which one that is, but we're gonna work as quickly as we can.
Great. Appreciate the updates and staying on this. Thanks for the work into this. Any questions? That's awesome. Great. Alright, we'll move on then to new business, item number 1. This is the recommendation for bid acceptance for the 1718 multi-use path drainage and water main improvement project. Pete, our town engineer, is here with us this evening to go over this information with us. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Pleasure to be with you tonight. I have a situation in Chesapeake which calls me to get back as soon as I reasonably can, so you get a break. I'll be briefer than you do. Seriously, you also have on your consent agenda the aviation park item later, but know that it's been a pleasure to work on that one with staff, and I think the bidding process has good results there, and I do recommend that to you as well. Regarding the Kill Devil Hills multi-use path phases 3 and 4, it's a grand thing to be standing here talking about the awarding of the contract for the last phase, the close in the middle, fill in the middle phase of this project that we've been working on now for almost 10 years. The report, the recommendations speak for themselves. It asks you to approve the award to RPC in the amount specified, and do the fund transfers and all of that, and also to give me some money to help the town's fine staff oversee this work. This will be a long project. Geographically speaking, it's 5,600 feet or about 1.1 mile almost 1.1 mile long. And we've given the contractor 270 days, beginning the day after Labor Day, which will finish him up around the 1st of June. And it'll take that long because it's a multi-stage project. You've got to shift the road, you've got to lay a lot of pipe, and then you've got to grade in for the new path, lots of driveway work and so on. So we're pleased with the way this has unfolded, and certainly recommend that you accept the award to RPC and the other provisions that are contained in the item. If I may, just to add quickly, one feature of this, we try not to mess with our folks multiple times. If we got to get into an area, if it needs a path, but it could also use some drainage work, we're not going to do a path this year and come in and do something drainage-wise 4 years later. That's just silly. This project will have stormwater pipe, our sock drain that has worked so well in some areas like Ocean Acres and really almost cured some of the flooding problems that we've gotten. Will be continuous along that entire run from the intersection of First and Canal up to the intersection of Bay and Avalon. And I mention that because it's interesting and it's been working for us, but also we're just in, I won't say we're coming through, who knows if we're through or not, a pretty wet summer period. Had an awfully wet July, and August is on pace to keep up with it. When that happens, rain comes out of the sky, it falls, most of it soaks in, it raises up the groundwater, and then the sound and the ocean start tugging on that groundwater and lowering it down. But if the next rain comes before it's brought all the way back down, you have this gradual creeping up of the groundwater. And that's what did us in back in 2010 in, for example, Ocean Acres. And so much of the drainage work we do is oriented around managing that groundwater, because we use a perforated pipe that draws it in and slowly milks that groundwater table back down even when it isn't raining. And so in the places in town where we have that already there, I think you can see a marked difference in the way it responds to wet periods like this. So as we take the long look, which I may not be around for the long look, but we'll see, I would encourage you to continue that and ask our citizens to be patient. I think that we're doing, comparative to other locations on the Outer Banks, I think we've got a great head start on some of the challenges we've made. There's still a lot of areas that aren't within the reach of these groundwater lowering pipes that we're putting in. So if you have any questions about that or anything else, or how many decibels you have to raise a noise before it's twice as loud as the same noise or anything like that, I'm your engineer and here I am. So any questions?
Thank you, Pete.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, let's first address the recommendation for the bid acceptance. So does anyone have any specific questions related to that this evening? Okay, if there are no questions, then a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid from RPC Contracting, including the provisions listed on the memo.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, now before you leave, questions on any of the drainage or the flooding? I know there's been some, I've received some comments, and I appreciate you being willing to speak about this a little bit this evening. Some concerns, because certainly there has been a lot of rain this summer, and fortunately, when the rain stops and it's not coming down in droves, you do start seeing pretty much immediate recession of the water. It's receding in some places quicker than others, and I'm guessing it's linked to where we have been able to make the stormwater drainage improvements according to our plan that we've been working. But there are areas still that have yet to be improved, that will be in our future. One specific item that's also linked to this, and I know we've received some emails about, and it's a bit of a quandary that we're in. It's related to the ocean outfall around Lake Drive. And NCDOT has the responsibility, it's my understanding, to maintain that and clear that, but it's not being maintained adequately enough, and the sand fills in, and then, and I'm aware as recent as yesterday, someone volunteered and dug out a little bit, and then all of a sudden, just the pressure, and it started draining again, but that's not, it's kind of a catch-22 as to, it's not on the town, but then it creates an issue, and one of the things I was gonna ask the board for consensus this evening is, to send a letter to NCDOT following up on that it continues to be an issue, and obviously with the amount of rain that we've been getting, it's, I think, even more, I don't know if that's making it even more problematic, or it's also just the sand fill, it's the combination of the two.
Steve Albright has actually had, email communication very recently with Jason. Would you share that with the board, Steve? Jason from DOT.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I've seen more action in the last week than maybe the previous year. Guy White was on scene. He's the kind of foreman crew leader for the bridge maintenance, was on site today. They're hoping to have a crew down to patch the concrete collars for a temporary thing to get us through the next month. And then they're supposed to be working on permitting and getting materials to replace the last 50 foot of that outfall, and get rid of the leaky joints, which are causing a problem there.
Well, that's a great update, and that is significant improvement in.
And what we could do, if the board agrees, is have a letter for you to go to DOT thanking them for this.
That would be.
And,
That's great.
encouraging them to
Reminder,
continue.
thank
Sticking
you.
with the plan, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and Martin Atlantic also has a problem. We don't have a problem there with leaky joints. The structure itself is sound, but the beach is accreted in that area. So depending on which wind direction and wave action, that one can get covered over in dry periods and not flow. So that's another one that letter may help, ask them to look at all the
Address that one
outfalls.
as well.
Good.
Because the plan they have is to make the repairs to the one at Lake.
Lake
But
Drive.
the other one, it's a totally separate issue then. Okay.
Are these expensive repairs they have to make?
That's a relative term, but in the scheme of DOT projects, I would say no.
So this is probably a bad idea for us to just do it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, the repairs we weren't, but even the digging out is not something we want to get
No,
into.
we do that quite frequently, but it needs more than that.
I think Steve would agree that we make a pretty good partner to the DOT. They've got a lot of responsibilities, so do we, but we don't sit around with our hands folded waiting for them to come. They've been known to open up an ocean outfall many a time, and we also have been known to develop helper systems that can give them a break. So we're doing everything we can, but some of the big trunk lines in town are associated with the ocean outfalls and with 158's drainage system itself, and it'll be a partnership in my mind for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely.
And this board did support in 2015 the improvements on North Memorial that were a tremendous help, but Pete will tell you we need to push that further south, down to Martin Atlantic to really see the full benefit, and that will again help.
Future instances of the street improvement and special project committee will be seeing that on their horizons, slowly moving closer, if it's your will for us to keep that program going.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I guess for both of you, when we have these rain events that create more than just, a random rain event, because we've had consecutive days and then days on days, and as far as updating that and bringing new recommendations to the street improvement project, I guess it gives you an opportunity to see where even we can readjust that list based on new developments that you're seeing as you're traveling around town when we have these events and see where we've got more water standing. I'm assuming that's happening.
I think that if you were to look at the magic spreadsheet with all the ridiculous colors that I put on it, no sense of style or taste at all, you would see that there are 2 more phases of Memorial Boulevard work that will project those benefits further and further upstream or south. And we've had those this year that led to the Now project being the path, has had those projects listed, not just this one, but the one before it had them as well. So they are not, I mean, we certainly are looking for ways to optimize and make it better. If we could do those things, if the DOT gets the outfalls working a little better, if we could ever work something out with the DARE Center to make that channel in front of them a little bit better. The work that Publix is doing is eliminating, that's putting a very strong link in a chain that's got some weak spots in it still, but one of them's pretty much going away. So we're making progress, and you guys have been willing to fund progress, and we're gonna keep making it happen as cost effectively as we can.
That's great,
I
appreciate
can
it.
tell you, as a Ocean Acres resident, I appreciate all the work that's been done back there. I mean, we're not seeing standing water and everything. The other thing I wanted to just take the time to thank y'all for is all of the work that's been taking place, cleaning out the edges of the streets, especially at the edges of the bypass, because that is making a significant difference in where the water's draining. It's not staying on the street very long at all, even under some of these crazy days we've been having. So, thank you.
Good job.
Any other questions, comments?
I'd like to just go back to the improvement street. Just to point out, I know everyone remembers, but we did get grant monies from the Outer Banks Visitors Bureau, thank them, as well as grant funding from the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. And of course Meredith, and her work in securing those.
And crew.
And crew. Meredith and crew. Team Meredith.
Great, thank you. And that Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, took us 2 attempts, right? But we got it. So sometimes perseverance and diligence pays off. So that's right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I hope you can get on safely to Chesapeake.
Thank you very
Ms.
much.
Keating.
Thank you, Dee.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, we will move on then to under new business. Item number 2, Michael Payne with Go Dog Go Beach Equipment Rentals is here. This is a request to have business included in section 111.04, permitted activities and events, and exempt from criteria, or exempt from certain provisions of the town code. If y'all recall, Mr. Payne was at our July 10th meeting where this came up and this request came up, and we asked for this to be placed as an agenda item. And with that, welcome back.
Thank you.
Do you all you want to start out with some comments related to this agenda item, or?
Well, first I want to say I really liked the little commercial that was playing about all the beach equipment that's left on the beach overnight, because that's one of the things that, I know we can't alleviate all of it. This is one of the things we're trying, our business and what we do, trying to help alleviate some of that. We make sure that all of our equipment is up off the beach every night at 5 o'clock when we pack up 5 to 5:30. I have noticed, I'll go out at night and there's just so much stuff left out at night. And some of the beachgoers don't even come back to pick it up. They buy these $7 chairs, at Winks, and they don't want to carry it home. It's just something for their week, and they'll leave it there. And I see the trash cans inundated with the cheap umbrellas and the chairs. I watch the guys go up and down the beach with their truck, and in no time their truck's filled because of all this huge equipment that they're having to pick up. So I like that commercial.
And if I might add, just the capitalistic reason too, the less of that, the more we're renting. So it really washes each other's hands.
So, if y'all remember, I had, last time we were here, we were asking, trying to explain to you why, we sent out pictures, gave you pictures of how we store our equipment. It's not just, you know, all in the way. It's neatly locked down, tied up, and we try to be very conscientious of even the color of tarp that I have chosen to put on the beach, so it does not, you know, it adheres to the landscape, you know. I don't want to be an eyesore out there. That's not what I love this beach. All my employees that work for me, I'm very diligent about, you know, when you're out there at work, if you have a soda bottle, you better pick it up and put it in the trash. So I gave you all the pictures. So we were here asking, you know, and trying to explain why it is so important that our equipment is stored on the east side of the dune. We try to keep it all the way back as far as we can to the you know, where the dune starts. And that reason is this is safety reasons with these umbrellas. I mean, you know how storms can come up out of the blue here on the beach. And if my employee is walking to the west side of the dune to go get a chair or an umbrella for a customer to set up, his eyes are off everything else. And, you know, I hate to bring up terrible things, but last year a woman did in Virginia Beach die from an umbrella getting blown out because it wasn't put in properly, and it hit her and punched her lung, and she passed. And so we train our kids, have a full day of training on how to make sure these umbrellas go in correctly. Every morning before they're set to their site, we have a meeting to go over wind speeds, wind directions, high tide, low tide, the radar. We communicate through a group text, everybody who's working. I run it 7 days a week, constantly watching, like days today when there's threats. You know, there's protocol that we follow when I hear thunder or lightning, you know, and what to do to get off the beach. Make sure the umbrellas are dropped to the ground, closed, and chairs folded on top of them so that umbrella cannot move, cannot blow out and hit anybody. And we're just, again, here asking that we're just trying to run a beneficial business, I think, for the guests that come into town. People love us. There's some people that can't carry a chair and umbrella to the beach. We do it for them. We set it up. We'll lug it wherever you want. You want it moved at 1 o'clock somewhere else, we'll move it. We'll do whatever. We watch it for you if you go to lunch, so you don't have to break it down and then come back, and then we break it down at the end of the day for you. And I guess that's about all I have.
All right, I'd just like to add also, one of the reasons there's no advertisement, we're using a very plain tarp over it, because out of sight, out of mind. Really, anybody can break in there and have that in their college dorm room or chairs at any time. And I had the privilege of doing similar business when I was 16, now I'm 57. So I got to work under the guys that actually invented the whole system. And I started at Comfort Inn, and that was probably 2007. And as far as I know, like we operate within the system now, and our storage, we probably took some liberties putting it on the east side of the dunes, because we see all the other equipment that's on the east side of the dunes that is just getting left overnight and is a hazard for anybody walking, and I guess sea turtles and God knows all the different things that can be a hazard for. And so that's another thing I think both hands are washing each other in this case. And in 2010, Nags Head gave me the permission when I went in front of their board of commissions.
So we have a letter from them welcoming us, and we understand you don't want peddlers out there. We do not peddle. My equipment has it says GEG, that's it. Just so I can distinguish mine from, because there are some people who do purchase their own that look like mine. I gotta be able to distinguish so we don't pick up somebody else's umbrella. My employees never approach a customer. We never try to sell it. They sit back, they come to us. I know we can't solicit and, out there trying to pressure. We don't do that. I know there's rules about the exchange of money on town property, on the beach. I try to adhere that as much as possible, but a lot of beachgoers get really upset when we tell them we gotta walk back and put at least 1 foot on the hotel property to do this exchange. But the majority of the sales are done through a phone call to the business where they pre-rent. And then it's just put in a book, and my attendant knows that day so-and-so's already, pre-rented for this, this needs to be set up, so. But we wanna adhere to, to the town ordinance. We don't wanna be out there soliciting, we don't do that. We don't pressure anybody, we never approach somebody, they come to us.
And it's just a great thing for our high school kids to do, and college students, for them to do in the summertime. Because it was great for me when I did.
I get down to roll. I've watched kids, because this has been going on now for 10 years. We've been doing this, and I've watched kids all through, like 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and then they come back from their first year of college, they get second year of college, third year of college. And I've, watched them, it's just been
A great
a
experience.
great experience, give them a job that they enjoy, make some money, and then it's a job too that, I'm not all, 14-year-olds sometimes just can't find a job, and, I'm willing to hire a 14-year-old if they have, the maturity, and I have, and they've done a great job for me, and it gives that kid some great experience, so.
Questions? Thank you. Discussion? Comments?
I thought about this for quite a while, since these guys were here last. And when it's just one person, I don't think it would be a big deal. But if it starts with one, I feel that it's gonna open the floodgates for a lot of other people to come forward and say, well, we just wanna do this one thing. And I feel that's gonna be where the problem comes from. So I don't think I'd be in favor of allowing this.
I agree with you, and also I would like to add too that if somebody has some other product that they might wanna, some kind of kayaks or something like that, if they're saying that if one person allowed to do it, we should be allowed to do it. So it does, like you say, kind of open up the door for some issues we not wanna face.
Yeah, it's kind of, we talked about this before when we had something similar. Again, it's just, I think we're just opening up a can of worms if we do this. Not that I don't think it's a great idea, I just,
Let me
again,
ask you this, if we just did on a trial basis, and if anybody else tried to follow suit with, say, kayaks or any type of toys, you just shut it down.
Well, we actually had this brought before us a couple of years ago, this exact same scenario, with a little addition. I think they also wanted to be able to drive on the beach to get the equipment, or even it was to deliver it and pick it up. And at that time, the seated board was in the same position, that if we allow it for one, because we can't, this isn't an indictment of your business or questioning. I mean, it's obvious you love the beach, you love what you do, and you're responsible, so that's
Well, I know that in
obvious.
those scenarios haven't happened in Mag's Head yet, since 2010 when they gave us permission.
What's in there?
Kayak, like somebody wanted to do the kayaks on the beach, or stuff like that.
Well-
Also, we can't limit it to one vendor.
can't limit it to one.
Even if we wanted to say, go ahead and give it a try, we can't limit it to one vendor. Like it can't be site specific on land use, it can't be business specific.
and the other vendor they were wanting to do chairs and
I think I'm going, it was the guy that I saw, he wanted to have storage boxes built on the beach. And that was a whole nother issue of CAMA permits, and that's why because I remember I was already out there on the beach when he was trying to do it.
We did receive a letter today as well from a business. It was purely to put as part of the packet, but it did raise additional concerns, specifically, about having transactions happening on, the town beaches, which we know that that's not allowed, but this exception, the concern was, again, opening the can of worms with requests for other exceptions. And the potential of having unfair trade, so to speak, or unfair business practices with that. That was a concern or caution that was brought before the board. Am I seeing consensus, or I'm seeing it's, you're not in favor of changing anything, you're not. Correct. You're not. So we don't have enough to move forward with making any change.
Alright,
But I appreciate you bringing it before us.
Thank you.
We will move forward to item number 3 under new business, appointments. We have 2 appointments to consider this evening. Actually, technically 3 appointments, but into 2 different boards. The first is to the planning board. We received a resignation letter from Ben Sproul, who had served with us for a long time. We've accepted that resignation, and certainly I'd like to publicly thank Ben for his service. He's contributed just very good perspective through the years and through his service, so I appreciate his service. But we have his position to fill. That would be filling his unexpired term through March 2018, and also John Winley's term expires in 2017. He desires to be reappointed to that 3-year term. So we could actually take both of those together, if you would like. Do you wanna?
I'd like to nominate Mike Loack for the position on the planning board, the position previously held by Ben. And also, reappoint John Winley.
Okay,
Second that.
so there's a motion and a second for those 2 appointments. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The other appointment is a alternate position to the zoning board of adjustment. And when we, I don't know if it was our last meeting, but when we made Ron the untitled officially the regular member, then it left his alternate position vacant, so we need to fill that position.
I think Natalie Painter, a lot of the applicants over the weekend, I think Natalie Painter would be a good, good option for that position.
It's a motion
That's a
for
motion.
Natalie to,
I'll make that motion.
okay, a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone's service on those boards. And we, if anyone has an interest in serving on any other board, we have applications, you can contact the clerk or, the website as well for that information. All right, item number 4 under new business is the report on regulatory options for large single-family dwellings. Let's see. Yes. Eric had put together quite a bit of information and kind of resurfaced some information per our request. Some of this was information that was presented back in 2015, I think if I have that date correct, to us, including one thing came up in our most recent discussion of wanting to know some background on the other towns and where they stood and how they came up with their information. So the PowerPoint includes that. Meredith, did you want to walk us through anything in this packet that you had prepared for us?
I would actually rather just answer questions you might have about that. If that's amenable to the board, I could go into it, but I think it would be speedier if you just asked me if you had any questions.
Questions? Questions, comments, or discussion?
I think, first of all, I think we should, take your advice and send a resolution to the Building Codes Council and see if they can address this. Having, in a lot of people's opinion, this falls between a single-family home and a commercial, like a hotel, commercial establishment. So it's regulated right now like a single-family home, but it's, in some senses, it's acting like a hotel or a motel. And I heard rumors that they're talking about it, or whether they're working on it or not, I don't know. But Jared suggested we send them a letter or a resolution or something, asking if they address this.
Can I add to that? Okay. Mike and I talked, and you'll find it in my memorandum too, if the issue that this board keeps coming back to, it seems to be, is a safety issue. That it's not equipped with some of the safety features to house as many people as they house, in the board's opinion. The building code does not reflect that opinion. And, there apparently has been some banter about the Buildings Code Council about creating an intermediate between a single-family dwelling and a commercial establishment that would address some of the safety issues, but not make it commercial, which again, as you know, Willow's talked, and I think several other builders have talked about the cost prohibitiveness of commercial with the insurance, with the handicap accessibility, with a lot of the things that are required for commercial. It would make single-family dwellings become something that would be cost prohibitive. But an intermediate that maybe addresses some of the safety issues of houses over a certain square footage, if that's something they're considering, if they would get a letter of support from the town of Kettle Hills requesting that they move forward in that consideration, if the issue that we've keep talking about is safety, then that would be the recommendation from the staff to move forward with that. And we could draft a letter and bring it back to the next meeting for final approval, if you would like.
And I think that gets to Meredith's point, which I think she eloquently lays out in her August 14th memo, which is behind page 7 of 8 in the minutes, is for the board to really kind of give some guidance on what are the most problematic, or what is it that you want to focus on. And she laid out some items here. The letter that we're referencing is really to go after the one angle that we have discussed. I know I've stated a number of times is probably my biggest concern, is just that safety factor. So that letter would really be addressing that angle. If there are other angles or items of concern, then we first kind of need to identify those and then be looking at what we want to discuss and strategize as far as those. And so I don't know that we've had a clear consensus on, I think everyone's been somewhat concerned about the safety, but beyond that, is it the building bulk or the setbacks or the parking? Well, Travis, I know you have mentioned parking a couple of times. Is it guest behavior and event sites? But I think that's still I think clarity's needed there.
I mean, of all the things that are listed in the memo, I think the ones that we've looked at probably the most has been parking and safety items, not whether or not people are gonna behave themselves in a big house or whether they're in a small house. I mean, I don't think that's an issue for me. I mean, that would be the two that I would pursue. And I would certainly be in favor of having the building code be updated in that interim step versus us trying to do regulations that put us at odds with property owners.
and I'll be one of the first to say, I mean, I'm sitting here because I've said, I want us to maintain the quality that we have as our unique Outer Banks. And I want us to keep some of what we have, and we do have a uniqueness, and people drive past several beaches that are very different to get to us. They drive past a lot of, Myrtle beaches and down south, and Virginia beaches up north to get to us. And I've seen it change over the years. And that said, I don't think that limiting the size of a house is going to change that. I don't think that saying you can't build a 14-bedroom house or a 24-bedroom house is going to change the uniqueness of the Outer Banks. I think some of what Mayor Rollinson said earlier is true. We are different in Kill Devil Hills. We do have different size lots here. We are the largest municipality on the Outer Banks, and for somebody who studied business, sometimes you have to let the law of economics weigh out. You have to let supply and demand happen. And so what we thought would happen a long time ago has not happened. We thought that, well, nobody's gonna use these big places and they're gonna quit building them. Well, that's not happened. So as long as that people are still demanding them, we need to let them still build them. And I know that's not what some of the public wants to hear, some of the citizens that live here want to hear, but that's just the way it is. And it doesn't matter if people are gonna come and stay in a 24-bedroom home or if they're gonna come and stay in a hotel. If they can afford that and that's where they're coming, then they're still visitors and they're still contributing to the occupancy tax and they're still eating and they're still coming here. So I just, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm hearing this from a lot of people, so it's not just my thought. I'm not trying to discount anybody who says that big houses are, not what we want here, but we have to look at all different sizes, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I just think we need to look at every different direction on this, and it's not fair to just say that big houses are bad. So I just, and I'm not siding with anyone on this, I'm just trying to look at all different directions on this. So I know there's gonna be some people that are not gonna be happy with that opinion, but it's just the way it is. I'm sorry.
Safety's always been one of my
And
concerns.
safety is the huge issue there.
Some other things we haven't really talked about is the trash footprint, which I think most of these larger homes have dumpsters. So, that's something that's, concern as well. A lot of people have been talking about, the water, standing water, whether or not it has a place to go because of these homes, but, I don't know if
That's taken care of when it's built, I mean,
And parking was another good one, so.
I have a certain number of parking spots to be able to build one of those houses. We've taken care of that by zoning.
If, I took some pictures, I did not bring them to this meeting because I didn't know that they would be necessary, but Brian and I took the last week in July, first week in August, which is typically one of our heaviest weeks tourist-wise, and took pictures of most of the houses that were 16-bedroom or more, and there was not one house that we saw, and one of them had 19 cars in the driveway, that blocked a single other car in. They are self-regulating themselves as to, I don't wanna be the first guy parked here, cause I'll never get to leave all week. So they had angle parked themselves and parallel parked themselves, so there was a drive aisle that went all the way to the front door on nearly every single large house. And I took pictures of them all, but I didn't know if that's where we were gonna go, so I chose not to bring them, but I would be happy to share them with the board and if you'd like to see them, just to see I know that the way they look on a site plan, it's stacked. It's not how they're doing it in reality. Also, on a site plan, if they show you a different way to park, it might not also be how they do it in reality, because parking in single-family dwellings, we don't require striping. Even if you did, we can't enforce it because that's a commercial code, not a single-family code.
But the
So-
stacked parking is something we have all over town.
Correct.
And all the
But they're not
school
stacking
districts.
themselves.
Right.
Just like, you know, you try not to park behind the, you know,
You know, go
your
to someone's
family
house for
member's
dinner.
car, because you
Exactly.
know they've gotta go somewhere at 8 o'clock and you don't wanna have to go move your car.
Right.
It's the same general principle, I think, with people that are vacationing together. I'm sure that some might say, I'm not moving this car, park wherever you want to. But we found that we went out that week and everybody had very much self-regulated, and the one that had 17 cars had 2 open spots where someone had obviously gone out for breakfast.
Yeah.
You know, there was one here and one in the parallel spot. There were 2 very distinctly, like, we've gone out kind of thing. So it's just a point that I wanna make to you, that some of that's self-regulated, and also even if we regulate it, we can't enforce how they're parking at a single-family dwelling, cause it's not in the code. It's not part of what we can do. We can tell them they have to show it to us on a site plan a certain way, which may increase the amount of concrete we have in front of big houses, but we can't actually enforce how they're actually physically parking themselves. I just wanted to point that out to you.
Meredith, with, when you all did the kind of driving around and drive-bys, did you notice any trash issues, or have we heard any trash issues?
What day did we do it, a Monday or Tuesday, didn't we? And, I mean, it wasn't something I went, ooh, so, but I don't know.
Steve, have you heard?
Steve?
And they have, that has, they have been addressing that, like this period that Meredith's talked about, which seems to be our busiest time. There was the one time the other week and things was pretty, heavy.
Yeah, very few complaints on the larger homes with the dumpsters. It's the rollout carts where we have the issue. If you're over 7 bedrooms,
But not,
you're gonna have a dumpster, it's an enclosure, you don't have to worry about what day do I have to put it out, when do I have to wheel it back. Doesn't get lost, doesn't blow over into the beach road, you know, it stays put, everybody knows where it's at, and then, the drivers service them as necessary 5 days a week, so, the ones that have dumpsters, in my opinion, when you drive down the beach road, you don't see the abundance of carts on the south end, and they're actually a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Gotta thank Randy Metzger for that,
and
started in the early 2000s.
what they do when they have these overflowed carts is contact the rental agency. And after a couple of warnings or so forth, then they're either required to get additional carts or go to the dumpster. But those are the in-between houses.
Yeah, that's,
Right.
you know, some bedrooms.
Larger, but not quite large enough to.
Right. Well, because there's still a lot of people in those houses. And, you know, I understand the board's comment about the safety concern. I think we've all discussed that with the really, really large ones. But these in-between houses are getting a lot of people put in there as well. You know, just because they don't have 22 bedrooms don't mean that they're not putting a lot of
22
people in there.
Yeah.
So.
Other comments?
I think things, a lot of things are cyclical. I was doing some research on this subject, and I saw on the internet, and I saw a headline that said our McMansion's a thing of the past, and I said, oh, I'll go check that out, and it was from the year 2000, so. Thing of the past. Another one was from 2008, and it had a similar headline, but this one's actually was relevant because the Great Recession was coming. And things were starting to slow down, and the builders weren't building them at that time. And that reflected here, as I recall, looking at the dates, that the list we have of houses that were built, there was few of them built between 8 and 12, or 13. Most of them happened before that and since then. So we can hope for a bad economy.
No.
No, I'm kidding. But it is cyclical, and, you know, there's been some thoughts and, you know, alternatives, cottage courts or something along this line. pad homes or whatever they call them, patio homes. But if you have 6 patio homes with 3 bedrooms each, you have 18 bedrooms on the same lot, so there's really not that much difference, except for maybe the safety factor. And there are some lots that we could fit that kind of scenario on also. And I did want to point out a thing that illustrates, I think, pretty clearly, is staff prepared a thing that says the change in building value and tax revenue, assuming a 5,000 square footage limit. Well, that's kind of it's a little bit low maybe for what some might suggest, like 6,000 or above or whatever. But one particular property, these are actual properties. The building value is 1.6 million. And if they were only allowed to put a 5,000 square foot home on that lot, it would be worth 800,000. So it's a 50% loss in value. Another one, very similar, is 44% loss in value, 54%, another 44, a 43, and a 19. So of the ones that we were given. But that's pretty much what some have been saying about changing this. Somebody has a piece of property and hypothetically it's worth one of these figures, and you tell them they can't do that anymore. They've just lost their kids' college fund or whatever. So.
And that was 2015 tax numbers.
What's that?
That was 2015
Yeah,
tax
2015.
It's going up.
and the values were 2015 values also. Just
For point of reference.
point of reference for what you're looking at.
So that also decreased the taxes proportionately.
Any other comments?
So for the next meeting, we'll bring back a letter to the board to review, to the building code council.
Yes, there was consensus for that. Looking at the safety issues, and basically the building code related items, yes. What is the pleasure of the board regarding, I mean, we mentioned parking, but we had a little discussion on that. We mentioned trash, but we had a discussion on that. What other items to research, look into? I know we've got the land use plan. I do appreciate Sherry's comments that obviously not making a decision exclusive to that because that's not gonna cover all of the grounds, but it would certainly be interesting to see what the results share. What, if any, action does the board wanna do or put on for future discussion, or where do you wanna go? Beyond the letter for the next meeting.
Well, I was talking to Meredith a couple days back about possibly having some sort of like if they want to build over a certain percentage, sort of how we have with the unapproved beach accesses with the FAR ratio. Like how it's set to
You threw me
4.
with the beach access.
If they're set to 4 and then they want to go up to 5.5.
Incentivize for floor area ratio?
Right, okay, so how we have something like that, but for the large homes. So I was asking her to look into the possibility of doing something similar for these houses, where we set the size low, but if they contribute something for the betterment of the community, they can go a bit higher. So I was gonna find out if that was in the realm of possibilities. And she said she was gonna talk to you.
I've spoken with the town attorney. The idea would be to have a community development fund type thing, that there would be fees for certain square footages that would go into things that we could build sidewalks and accesses to. And I've questioned the legality of it and asked Casey to look into it, and he's doing that.
And they will. I was informed of
that at the beginning of this meeting, as a matter of fact.
It would have to be townwide if it was even allowed.
Correct.
Just do it.
There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that.
Kind of cool idea.
Okay, well, we'll get information on that, you guys can bring that back too.
I think otherwise, you know, the points that were made, we can't do anything about the safety, because that's state regulated. And we can't do anything about the number of bedrooms, that's state regulated. And guest behavior, as Travis pointed out, we can't regulate, for sure. And, noise, most of the noise complaints from something like that would probably come from the people. So these are things that we can't really affect. It's about half of them we really can't, don't have any effect on. We can do the, bulk and the setbacks and a couple of the other things, but we really don't have a lot we can do unless the state gives us another category.
So, at this point, just the letter,
And Casey's research.
and Casey's report back at the next meeting.
Got it.
And then we will, I'm guessing this will come back up when we have our survey results, and we'll be discussing it because it's in there as an item.
Next year, and the year after.
Well, and, I mean, I think, specifically what was put before us in the ordinance was looking at the limiting the square footage. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't get the feeling that there's consensus to address that with this board. So if that's the case, then the other items, we've discussed what's been concerning, we have a plan for one, we'll get the feedback on the other, we'll get the land use survey and go from there if, something else surfaces with that. That's my summary of what I believe I heard. Yes, okay. Okay, then we will move on to Commissioner's agenda. Commissioner Midget.
All right, so I want to thank the Great Lakes Dredging Company for allowing us to have a visit on the dredge. That was pretty spectacular. You guys really missed out. I was really impressed with their safety protocols. I mean, that seems to be the most important thing that they went over repeatedly, and they've had some discussion while we were there about some of the issues that they had on the other dredges, and I believe that dredge as well. So that was, I was really happy to go on that trip. And I also wanted to thank everybody that, had a hand with the National Night Out. I think it was a lot of fun. I think next year, the line for the dunk tank should be moved back a little bit.
I agree, absolutely agree.
So those kids were a little bit too accurate that close.
And my son only gets one chance. The baseball player, no, we're moving that.
And maybe limit the time in the booth to 15 minutes instead of 30.
I think that's a great suggestion as well.
30 minutes was tough.
Yeah. The other thing I thought was really cool that I saw up in Southern Shores, at the crosswalk, they have little like PVC pipe holders with some batons with fluorescent orange flags on each side. So when you walk up, you grab a flag, put it in the other side when you got to the other side of the road. I just thought it was kind of a neat idea. I don't know if you guys ever get up that way. I don't know if that's something that would really work for us, but I just thought it was kind of cool and I thought I could share it with you guys. Yes. Okay.
So they just take one out to walk across to create awareness.
Right,
And
and
then
then you
put it in
stick
the, interesting. I have not seen, I haven't been up to see that, but we'll look into that.
Pretty cool. Didn't see that.
That's all.
Okay, well, thank you. Mr. Ashland?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Reba?
Again, the National Night Out was great. Thanks for everybody who attended and the staff and the people, the volunteers that put all the time into it. It was great. And for everybody who helped in the dunking, that was, everybody who braved it, that was, good.
We'll need twice as many people next year, because we are gonna shorten
Yeah, we're
the
gonna
timeline
shorten
to
the
15 minutes. So
15 would be plenty.
Need some
And
staff,
there's a
staff
YouTube,
members.
it's on our, there's a Destination Dare video about National Night Out, and it's on the town's YouTube page, so check it out. It just shows what a great fun event it was, and I guess our next fun event coming up, we don't have a date yet, but soon we will, unless I stand corrected, is the Ice Cream Social, which will be late September, early October probably, so we'll let you know as soon as we have a date, but that's another wonderful Kittle Hills community event, so we'll get the date out so you mark your calendar. Anything else this evening?
I just wanna say that dunk tank was quite an experience. I never did that before. And I had a dry shirt I took with me, but I was wearing shorts and I thought I'd be okay, you know. Well, I got out of that thing and I was freezing, I shivered. So I went home and had a hot, no, oh yeah, I did. Took a hot shower. Thanks for everybody that attended though, it was fun.
Anything else?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, we will move to Mayor's agenda, a few things this evening. First is the Historic Landmarks Commission's annual landmarks dedication and open house tour is scheduled for Friday, October 6th from 2 to 5. Open to the public, great event to, opportunity to tour the some of our historic landmarks and homes. So mark your calendars, October 6th, 2 to 5. Our solid waste brochure is out, and there's copies in the back there if anyone wishes to pick that up. It explains all the services of our recycle center and the dry trash drop-off centers. Along with that, our bulk trash collection dates that have been set, and the bulk trash collection is going to begin on Monday, October 16th. So you've got the bulk trash pickup information and the brochure are on the back. Please grab one. And I'm sure this information is also available on our website as well. So, wanted to congratulate Officer Jody Lewis with our police department on the birth. They welcomed their new son, Gideon Wayne Lewis, on August 8th. So, family is doing well. Also wanted to mention, and since Chairman Woodard's here, I'll share our conversation. We had a phone conversation the other day about the milfoil issue, which is an aquatic weed. If you're back on the Bay Drive area, you probably have smelled it, certainly have seen it. And when I called to ask about it with the town, I was not surprised. I was pleased to know, but I shouldn't say I was surprised because we do have an amazing staff team that seem to be on issues before sometimes I even recognize their issues. But they were already working on this apparently years ago, well, not that many years ago, but more than 3 years ago, we had kind of an annual treatment program. I say we, but it was in conjunction with the state to treat the aquatic weed. Milfoil is what most people know it as. But they made some changes at the state level, and it began, somehow we got excluded, so to speak, because it focused on lakes and not the sound. And but recently that language changed to get that covering us. And Sean had been in touch with the folks at the state level. They had already come out once and checked it, and apparently it's the worst bloom that it's been in years. And they are making plans to treat it, probably some treatment the latter part of this month, beginning of September, but I do caution in saying that, this was an update I just read today, Bob, that we probably won't see a big difference until next year, but at least we're on it, and now we'll be back on an annual treatment basis. And the town puts in funds, and then the state covers funds too for this, but so if anyone's been concerned, it's been duly noted. Unfortunately, staff's working on that, and by next summer we'll see a big difference. So, and then the last thing I wanted to bring up is last week. Yes, it's just Monday. I had the opportunity to go, and I spoke at the public hearing that was put on. It was basically by the state to prepare comments for BOEM related to the offshore drilling lease. And certainly was representing the board because we've consistently taken a stance against offshore drilling and exploration, as noted in our resolutions and consensus and whatnot. But I received an email today, which was requesting, it was from Governor Roy Cooper's office, the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, asking to specifically send those comments to the governor's office as well, basically put them in writing, which I was verbally making comments. So happy to do that. I made my notes again from what I said and would work to do that letter and get that out tomorrow, but I just wanted to make sure nothing changed and this board would reaffirm consensus with that opposition, and then I'll get that letter out tomorrow.
Yes, please.
Okay, good deal. Figured that would be the response, so. And that's all I have. So we'll move on to town manager's agenda.
Yeah, ma'am.
Town attorney's agenda.
Nothing from me, Mayor.
Okay, Debbie, we'll go to the consent agenda.
Okay, it's a little long this evening, try to get through it quickly. The first item is the minutes from the July 10th, 2017 meeting. The second is a budget amendment to provide funds for the design, building, and construction phase for updates to, upgrades, to Glenmuir and Ferris Avenue. This is simply recording the board's consensus, to move those monies from the capital reserve fund, so we could execute a contract and begin that work. The third is a budget amendment to rebudget the FEMA funds from Hurricane Matthew to rebuild Aviation Park. These bids were received on August the 3rd. Hatchell Concrete submitted the low bid, and oversight services with these as well would be with Albemarle Engineering. Approval of the consent agenda will rebudget the FEMA funds for the project. Once that funding has been secured, then I'll execute the contract, and the work is expected, substantial completion is expected by Friday, December the 1st. I know several of the board members have had people asking why this has taken so long, and it's, and getting it approved through FEMA.
Debbie, can I just ask one question here on this? The note in your memo, substantial completion is required by December.
December 1st.
Is that required based on FEMA's stipulation, or is that?
No, I think
Based on
that's
Hatchell?
just us wanting it to begin and
Okay.
have an ending.
That's
point, as
our
opposed-
expectation.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, thank you.
Contractual, is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Number 3 is the recordation of consents approval for the hurricane debris, disaster debris removal interlocal agreement with Dare County. Number 4 is to schedule a public hearing for Monday, September the 11th, 2017, at 5:30 p.m. on the requested amendment to Chapter 152 subdivisions and Chapter 153 zoning of the town code. This is a request from Saga Construction and Realty. And then lastly, this is the maintenance plan for the beach nourishment. Our beach nourishment project is completed, and I'm not even gonna start to try to thank people because I know I'll leave someone out. But I do wanna thank the various boards through the years that have worked so diligently and so hard on this. And just like I say, just so many people. We worked with an incredible group from Great Lakes Dredge, and as well as our engineers, Ken Wilson and Julian Device, who we've worked with for years. And then I could not have been any prouder of our staff. And there again, I'm just not gonna get into names because I know I'll leave someone out. We all recall that we got that last moment notice that they were bumping us up from the middle of August, which we wouldn't even be started yet until when they started. And it was scurrying around like little ants, but you know, they got it all done. They got the information out to the groups, got easement agreements, Casey's help, and you know, it was just incredible. It was really, really incredible to watch. This is the beach management plan that we do need for FEMA, because our project now would be, could possibly be eligible under the FEMA Administrative Public Assistance Program. And with the approval of the consent agenda this evening, that will record your approval of the management plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? A motion?
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you
Very much. Thank you. Okay, we have reached the second time set aside this evening for public comment. Same application as before, so we'll welcome anyone who wishes to speak at this public comment time. Welcome, Willow.
Since my name was mentioned earlier, I thought I would just comment here in the second public comment period. My name is Willow Kelly, Government Affairs Liaison Consultant for the Outer Banks Home Builders Association and the Outer Banks Association of Realtors. I would just like to ask that perhaps prior to your next meeting and this letter being drafted to the North Carolina Building Code Council, that we could schedule a meeting with some of the members and leadership of the Outer Banks Home Builders Association who are very familiar with what has happened in the last few years with regards to large structures with the Building Code Council. There, of course, is concern when that term commercial comes out when referring to a single-family structure. Not only, as was already mentioned, there are differences when it comes to insurance, when it comes to building standards. There's also a difference when it comes to financing. And the future investment in our community is dependent upon the investment in the single-family structures that we know are vacation rentals that bring in revenue, that in turn provides tax revenue to our communities, to educate our children, of which the children in these homes do not have, does not have to expense on that. So I would just like to provide input. We did work with the town of Nags Head when they were looking to lower the size of their structures to 3,000 square feet and looking at incentives to be put in place to allow structures to be built up to 5,000 square feet. And we, of course, are aware that the trend, housing options that are out there now, and the trend of development leaning towards larger structures has been an issue when it comes to the interior of the structure and safety issues. But we would like to have the opportunity to participate and comment on any letter that is sent. There was something put in, some information that was sent out with regards to a future category being named a tourist home. That has no definition as of yet, but that has been discussed on the state level. And we're of course very concerned in moving forward that fear that the 2-bedroom beach box could be classified in a category that then makes all of our structures that are vacation rental homes non-conforming. And we know that use changes, ownership changes, use changes from what could be a primary residence to a vacation rental home. You've seen trends with Airbnb and vacation rental by owner, et cetera, that have impacted housing options here on the Outer Banks. So I will be contacting you, if I may, to possibly set up a meeting prior to your next meeting. Okay, that's it.
Great,
All right.
thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Will.
Who else would like to speak this evening at public comment? Anyone else?
Mayor, I'll say something.
Okay.
Bob Woodard, 2305 Bay Drive, Kill Devil Hills. Just for the record, if the clerk will note that I am here as a citizen of Dare County and not the chairman of the Dare County Board of Commissioners. And I, in my comments, in no way reflect the position of the Dare County Board of Commissioners. I was all prepared to speak at length for my 3 minutes anyway about item 4, but it's pretty obvious to me that Mayor Pro Tem Hogan and board, y'all have certainly displayed a due diligence tonight with respects to item 4, and I want to commend you for that. And I appreciate you not. I was all prepared thinking that you were going to make a decision tonight on a specific square footage, and it's obvious to me that all of y'all have a very difficult decision with this item, and I'll echo former Mayor Rollison's comments about looking at this with respects to facts and not emotions. I've read all the minutes and everything, and I want to commend you for looking at individual property rights, understanding the ramifications on both sides of the issue, waiting until the LUPD is surveys completed. And number goes on and on, the issues go on and on, and I want to commend you for that. I think Willa has just recently spoke about the impact. I want you to know, and I don't insult your intelligence by telling you this, but I know you're aware of how the 6% occupancy tax is broken down. It's 2 cents for beach nourishment, 4 cents remaining is broken down as follows. 1% is to the Vistas Bureau, which they need to promote, use to promote tourism, and the remaining 3 cents of that is the county gets 32% of that, the town gets 68% of that, and it's broken down based on their ad valorem. And I know you folks are aware of that, but you may not be aware of the fact that this past year, that represented $2,682,850 to the town of Kill Devil Hills in occupancy tax. And granted, I'm not saying that that is the major issue here. I know there are many more issues involved with you having to make this decision. But I want to commend you tonight for the steps that you've taken, and you're going about this in the proper way, and that's weighing every single option before you. And I would just implore you, before you make that final decision, perhaps as a suggestion that Mayor Pro Tem Hogan mentioned recently, and that is suggested establish a special group comprised of representatives from various interests. Home builders is key, property management companies, Chamber of Commerce, residential builders, and our local citizens to weigh in some input and help you make that decision. And with that being said, thank you very much. And I will say on 2 other topics, as your town manager just mentioned, what an absolutely beautiful beach we have out there. Thank you all for participating in that. I know as the county, we were happy to participate as well, and it's quite impressive to see 300 feet of beach out there that our citizens are enjoying. And last but not least, Sheila, thank you for taking care of the milfold this year. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob, for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening in public comment? Anyone else? Okay, response to public comment, Willow, absolutely, we'll schedule a meeting. I'll work with Meredith's timeline and we'll get some, we did this before, I know, so happy to do that again. Anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Bob, thank you for the kind words for us, and I also want to point out that we're not just the only board that ever dealt with this. It's been going on for quite a while, and staff prior to the ones we have now worked on it. And I'm trying to think of when it started. It's been through several iterations as far as the board's concerned. And so but I did want to thank you for the kind words. Mutual Admiration Society here tonight. Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything this evening before we adjourn? And a motion to adjourn would be in order?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.